Hi, welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany and welcome to day 5 of the 12 days of Christmas. So today I am doing a video that was requested by some of you when I asked for suggestions for video ideas, and I had a couple of people ask for reading tips on how to read more / what my reading routine currently looks like. If you saw my goals video for the first of the 12 days of Christmas, you'll know that I'm still trying to find a little bit of balance here. So this will have some tips and kind of tell you a little bit kind of like what I'm currently doing, but I am currently kind of reassessing my reading schedule. But what it kind of looks like right now is that I get up before my daughter does in the morning, and I will read my Bible and then try to read at least one chapter of something else. And then I usually read before I fall asleep. And then when I'm cleaning, like vacuuming or folding laundry or something, I'm usually listening to an audiobook because that's not really time where anyone needs me or is trying to talk to me, and it's a time where I can easily focus on an audiobook because I'm someone that I can't just sit there and listen to an audiobook or my mind will wander. But if I'm doing something mindless with my hands, like folding laundry or sweeping or something like that, I can focus really easy on an audiobook. So that is like very vaguely what I'm currently doing, and I'm kind of reassessing, which is actually the first tip that I have. If you are someone who is looking to read more, or you just want to find more time for it, it's kind of like the new year and people are making resolutions maybe to read more or something like that. But the first thing I would say is to reassess your time and look at where time is going every day. Are you spending time scrolling on your phone for a while and you're like, oh man, I could have spent that time reading? Are you spending more time watching TV? Are you spending time with your family? Are you spending time working? Some of these are things you have to do. Some of them are things that you want to do. You may have lots of other hobbies besides reading, and you want to find time for all of them. Obviously, you want to prioritize family time or friend time or things like that, and that is all super important. Everyone kind of says, oh, well, we all have 24 hours in a day, so if I can do this, so can you. And there's some validity to that because we choose how we spend our time, and we may want to spend our time watching a comfort TV show rather than trying to engage our mind and reading more, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But the truth is that you do make time for what is really, really important to you. So reassess your time and see what am I doing when I have downtime, where I'm not working or I'm not spending time with family or I'm not doing maybe obligations on things that I have to do. How am I choosing to spend that time? Am I spending time that I could be spending reading, that I want to be spending reading, doing other things? And if so, should I switch some of that time out? Should I be more intentional at that time, or am I okay with the balance right now? So speaking of, spending time scrolling, I am so guilty of that. If I have my phone near me while I'm reading, then I will inevitably get distracted. Maybe I'll be looking something up on my phone that is about what I am reading. And so I will start looking at that, and before you know it, I am on social media, or I am like looking something else up, or I'm like, oh, I forgot I got to do this, and I'm doing all these other things. As a result, it's hard for me to focus and get back to reading and get my brain re-engaged, because when I have been staring at a screen a lot, it can actually be harder to get my brain into reading mode. So my recommendation to you, if you have that same struggle, put your phone in the other room. I'm trying to get better about this because I don't always need to be like on call, so to speak. If there's a true emergency, then there's multiple ways that people can get a hold of me, through myself or through my husband. And it's not like I'm leaving my phone for like an entire day, but it's okay to be unplugged for a time and to have devices in another room so you're less distracted. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, what if you think, oh, I forgot I have to do this, or look this up really quick, or, oh, I read this, I don't know what this word means, I don't know this. Have like a pad and pencil or pen next to you and write things down, and then just go back to your reading if your phone is something that distracts you. For some people, that's not the case, and so this is not applicable to you, but it is super applicable to myself, that when I have my phone in the room, it's not great. And I actually do better when I have my phone charging in the other room at night, because when I do that, I'm not going to be scrolling on my phone late at night, having the blue light wake my brain up. I sleep better, and I have more time to read before I fall asleep. So I guess this next thing kind of goes with having your phone in another room, especially if you do that overnight, is to bookend your day with reading. So if you start your day with reading and you end your day with reading, it kind of sets the tone, you know? Like I find like if I start my day off, that's why I always start with reading my Bible, is because I find I'm a nicer person if I take time to be with the Lord first than if I'm just going straight out the gate. So taking time to make a cup of coffee and drink some water and read my Bible and read something else and have that bit of quiet time at the beginning of the day really sets the tone for me. That is not always possible for everyone, and it has not always been possible for me. I did do that when I worked, but once I had my daughter, she's now 11, but when she was little, there would be times I'd wake up before her and times that I wouldn't, and I didn't have a whole lot of control over that. I think the younger that your child is, the less control you have over that, especially if you're co-sleeping or something like that. When you get up, your child may also get up. And so this is not something that necessarily really works for every person. It's going to depend on the stage of life that you're in. And I think it's really important to be gracious with yourself about that and to have kind of realistic expectations, which is another thing that I would say is really helpful when you're trying to figure out how you can read more and figure out how you can make time for more reading. Don't look at how much that person over there is reading, because I used to look at some people who would have all this time to read, and then I realized like they're retired and they don't have kids at home, or they are a homeschool mom and they have older kids. So while their kids are doing their independent work or while their kids are off at a sports practice, they're reading and they're making time for that. And then even at the stage of life where I am right now, I had different pockets of time when my daughter was younger and she had nap times and she went to bed earlier and different things like that. I had different pockets of time than what I have right now with an 11-year-old. And so I think as your life is changing, particularly as a parent with your child at different ages, you have different things that you're doing in terms of homework or sports or other things like that. But I think that the same thing is true for like your career trajectory. If like now you're a manager and before you were just an employee, now you have a lot more responsibilities. I think certain jobs, like people who are teachers, you bring a lot of work home with you and you're grading papers and doing lesson planning at home. So I think looking at your life, yes, everyone has the same 24 hours a day, but I think that different jobs require different things of us, different stages in life require different things of us, different stages in parenting or relationships or, you know, even like caring for elderly parents. I mean, there are different things in our lives that are going to take up more time. And that's true of like a stage of life in general. But I mean, we just got through Christmas. And December is an incredibly busy month where I often have less reading time. And I bet you that is true for just about everyone watching this video. So be gracious with yourself. Look at your life when you're reassessing and be gracious to yourself and realize, hey, that person over there who reads like 30 books a month, they don't have the same commitments that I have. They don't have the same life that I have, or maybe reading is their only hobby, or maybe they constantly have an audiobook going even when they're working and they're somehow able to process their job and their audiobooks. I don't understand how people do that. I'm always so impressed. People who are like, oh yeah, I was like watching TV and reading an audiobook. I'm like, how? How could you do both? But you know, everyone is different in how that they do things. So be gracious with yourself and set realistic expectations. While you're reassessing your day, look for if you consistently have small pockets of time. Do not just think, oh, I don't have time to sit here and read for half an hour or an hour, so it's not worth it. That's not really true. I think that you can find little pockets of time. So it could be you have a little bit of time on your lunch break to read. It could be, oh, I have a doctor's appointment and I can sit and read in the waiting room. Or it could be like my child naps at this time, so I can take this time right here. Or, you know, there's going to be different pockets of time, which again is different for everyone. You may like to listen to an audiobook on your commute to work every day, or you might prefer music, or you're calling people and getting caught up on social things or whatever. Again, for everyone, it's going to be totally different. But look for little pockets of time. And if you are able to get those bookmarks, there are bookmarks that are like magnetic on both sides, and they kind of have like a point on them, like an arrow. And so you can put it on the page and the arrow is going to point to the line that you left off on. So if you left off in the middle of a chapter and you couldn't stop, you can say what line you left off on or what paragraph you left off on or whatever. And that's super helpful, and it makes you feel like it doesn't take you like 10 minutes to find where you were on the page if you have one of those. So I think that that can be a really helpful way to kind of steal those little snatches, particularly if you have a lot of interruptions. Like maybe you have downtime at work and you can read for 5 minutes while you're waiting for someone to call you back. Or maybe your kids are playing in the other room, and so you can read for a few minutes until they realize mom's quiet, we need to go interrupt her. Different things like that. You will have different pockets of time. It's different for everyone, but I guarantee you that there are several, at least like 5-minute pockets throughout the day where you could read a chapter or a couple of pages or something, and all those little bits and pieces honestly add up a lot. Which goes on to another tip that I have, which is bring a book with you everywhere. Like maybe you can have a Kindle that has a whole bunch of different books and you can kind of tuck that in, so whatever you're in the mood for, or you can tuck a book in your purse or keep a book in your car or something, because you just never know. Like what happens if all of a sudden you are in literally like standstill traffic because there's been an accident and you don't move for like 10 minutes, 30 minutes? What if you had a book that you could squeeze that in? Because if you always have a book with you when you hit those unexpected time pockets that you didn't plan for, you're ready. I think also for different people, different formats of books work for them. So I greatly prefer physical books, and not everyone's the same for that. Some people are really not great visual learners and they do better with auditory input. So for some people, listening to an audiobook is the best way to go. I found that I can increase my reading if I listen to an audiobook when I'm doing menial chores, like I already mentioned. And so I think audiobooks is a really great way to squeeze that in there. If you are struggling with focusing on reading and you have an audiobook and a physical book, you can listen to the audiobook read while you are looking at the physical book, and that can really increase your focus, which can help you get through maybe more difficult books that you're wanting to read, or if you just have trouble sitting down and quieting your mind enough to focus on a page. If you're listening and looking at the same time, that can really, really help your focus and help you read more. I've also found that when I am reading really big books, especially, I prefer to read on my Kindle in bed at night. It's more comfortable to hold. It's not a giant 1,000-page book that's heavy and uncomfortable in my hands. So even for myself personally, though I prefer physical books, I am often switching formats throughout my books. So a lot of books that I'm reading physically, I also have the audiobook, especially if it's a buddy read that I'm trying to keep on a certain schedule for. Then I can just be like, oh, I'm folding a load of laundry. I can pop in this audiobook and get like 10 minutes in or something like that. And so I think having the same book in multiple formats really, really helps. So obviously that adds up if you're paying for all of them, but if you have a library card, most libraries, if not all libraries, have access to digital media to where you can download the Kindle book and also the audiobook, and that's really helpful. So if you're struggling and you're like, oh my gosh, like maybe try a different format of book. Try it in audio and see if that works better for you. Try it on Kindle and see if that works better. You can adjust the font size on Kindle so that way if it's a larger, font on the page, you're getting through a page quicker. You might feel like you're making more progress. That might feel really encouraging to you. So switching up what format you're reading can be super helpful. In addition to switching up the format, it's also really helpful to switch up the genre. So you may be trying to read something and it's just not working for you and it's just not the right time. It may be one you want to come back to. You may want to read a different genre. Maybe that's just what your brain is more in the mood for. And it's really funny because I'm very structured with my reading now, more than I've ever been. I used to just entirely mood read one, maybe 2 books at a time. And if I wasn't feeling it, I'd just ditch it. What I currently do is I usually have at least 3 different books going at the same time. And I have a lot of people say like, how do you do that and not mix them up? But I'm usually not reading the same genres. So I usually have a fantasy and a nonfiction and a classic, and then sometimes something else, sometimes multiple classics, because if they're from different time periods, they feel very different and it's not really a big deal for me. So it's not like I'm reading 5 cozy mysteries at the same time that might have sort of similar plots and get me mixed up. They're all super, super different, but that's really helpful to me in actually encouraging me to read more, because if I have a couple different genres going and I am wanting to read, I don't have to be like, oh, I don't really feel like that. I can pick out of the books that I'm currently reading, and so I can mood read within my very structured TBR. Some people really love to just sit and read for a really long time, and some people are incapable of doing that. They just don't do well with sitting for a long time, or they start feeling kind of antsy, or they just have a lot of other things to get done. And something that can be really helpful for you if you're wanting to read more, but you have other things to do, or you don't like to sit for very long, set a timer. Say, I'm going to read for X amount of time, and then I'm going to get up and do what I need to do for X amount of time. You can set another timer, take a break when that timer goes off, and go and sit down. And you can alternate kind of like productivity or other things you need to do with reading. And that is something that I've actually learned thanks to BookTube, because a lot of booktubers will do live reading sprints or productivity sprints, and essentially what they do is they say, hey, okay, so we're going to read from this amount of time to this amount of time, and there's a timer, and they read for that amount of time, and then they'll chat with people live in between those reading sprints. And I know that Krista from Books and Jams, that's how she reads all the time when she has stuff that she needs to get done. She'll set a timer, she'll read for 20 minutes, and then she'll set another timer for 20 minutes, and she'll go do, I don't know, like meal prep or cleaning something or something like that. And then when that timer goes off, she goes and she takes a break and she reads for however amount of time, and she'll just alternate and do that. So if you're someone that you either have a lot to accomplish or you just don't like sitting still for very long, that could be something that could help you read more but not feel like, oh my gosh, I just have to sit here for so long. Well, that's it for tips if you are someone who wants to incorporate more reading into your day or wants to kind of start a habit. I also really recommend the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, because it kind of helps you look at what you're already in the habit of doing during your day and kind of stacking a new habit in with that. And so if you're looking for more pockets or more ways to fit things in, that book does a really practical job of laying that out. But in general, I hope that this was helpful to you. If this is something that you needed and kind of like a little bit of a snapshot of what my daily reading looks like now, it wasn't super detailed because again, I'm kind of in the process of this right now of trying to reassess, trying to look for where there's more pockets, trying to balance my other hobbies, because reading's definitely not my only hobby. And I have really been enjoying playing video games lately. I like to hike, I like to spend time with my family. There's lots of other things I want to do, and so reading is not the end all be all for me, though I do have a BookTube channel and I do spend a lot of time reading. It's not the only hobby that I have, and that's probably the same for a lot of you as well, that you have other obligations, other hobbies, other things you want to be doing with your time. So this is not pressure to read more all the time because you have to read X amount of books, or you have to read X amount of pages or X amount of hours in a day to be considered a reader. If you read sometimes and you like to read, you're a reader, and you don't have to tool it so that way your numbers match up with whoever else's in order to be considered a reader. But if you are someone who wants to read more, wants to find more time, and you're looking for some tips to do that, I hope that this video has been practical and helpful for you. If you have any tips to help people on ways that maybe they could read more, or you want to share kind of your reading schedule in the comments down below, I would love it if you do that. That would be really helpful for people, and also it's just fun to talk to you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me and more of the 12 days of Christmas, and I will see you again tomorrow.